Stuart Little is, first and foremost, a tiny little mouse boy, but also a base hit franchise with one hit movie, one kinda successful movie, a straight-to-DVD garbage movie, and a canceled TV show. Sucked into the optimistic world of the Little family, audiences everywhere couldn't help but look around with wonder, asking, why does everyone understand that talking mouse and that talking bird, but they ignore that talking cat? The cat's mouth is moving, we can see it. And why do they adopt the mouse from a homeless shelter for human children, but just get other talking pets from the pet store? And why does that cat call the mouse a picklehead? Is that a mouse slur? Now, I'm not here to say, look at how bizarre the world of Stuart Little is, let's all laugh at it. I'm asking, what is the structure of the animal kingdom in Stuart Little? If the answer is there is none, it's just stupid, sloppy, non-world building, I could not care less. I don't care if the creators have zero answers for any of these questions. I am going to have answers for these questions. Before we begin, a quote from E.B. White, the creator of Stuart Little. Many years ago, I went to bed one night in a railway sleeping car, and during the night, I dreamed about a tiny boy who acted rather like a rat. And that's how the story of Stuart Little got started. Cool, man. Thanks. The 1999 movie opens the series with the Little family, set on adopting a brother for their son George, and unexpectedly meeting and falling in love with a feminist mouse named Stuart. When the Littles go to adopt him, the checkout lady at the orphanage says something curious.
We try to discourage couples from adopting children outside their own species. It rarely works out.
Big implications to read into already. Not only is the adoption of talking animals a thing that happens every once in a while, but it even has its own type of bigot. Introducing Stuart to George and the rest of the family, we meet the only other animal faction in the film: cats. Our feline lead, the house cat Snowbell, immediately tries to eat Stuart before it's made clear that he's not allowed to.
I can't believe this. I'm arguing with lunch.
The idea of a mouse with a pet cat is unheard of in the cat community. Snowbell's dumb comic relief friend Monty breaks into uncontrollable laughter at the thought of it. I turned myself into a picklehead, Monty. Now that's funny. It's unclear if a mouse with a pet cat is really a foreign concept, since we know these adoptions do happen, or if Monty's just being a dick about it. With Stuart settling into the family, we start to see a few of his interactions with humans. When Stuart is mistakenly thrown in the wash, a doctor is called and is unfazed by him. The family searches for clothes for Stuart at the doll store, where the cashier is not alarmed and assures them he can find something to suit their particular need. This is the pattern we're starting to see form. People maybe haven't seen a mouse in this exact situation before, but it's not really changing their worldview to see a mouse talk and think and love. Like when the extended family meets Stuart, they're initially surprised, but get pretty much right on board. And in the big boat race, when Lucy from Twin Peaks says,
Who is that mouse anyway?
That's not something you say your first time seeing a sentient mouse. In that boat race, Stuart uses the little wheel to steer a remote-controlled boat. Eagle-brained fans might notice that this is as ridiculous as it is impossible. But to jump ahead real quick, in episode 2 of the animated series, A Model Driver, we learn that George is a kid genius who hand-built that boat, along with the model plane we'll see in Stuart Little 2, and the Stuart mech from my fanfic, so we're meant to believe he's a kid genius who made all this possible. Desperate to get rid of Stuart in a way that can't be traced back to him, Snowbell lets Monty lead him into the seedy underbelly of Cat World. We meet a group of alley cats, high on catnip, filling a mobster-type role in this universe. The cats conspire to get 2 other clothed talking mice to show up posing as Stuart's parents, the Stouts, and take him away. The Littles had tried to search for Stuart's real parents in the past, but the orphanage lady gave this strange response.
It's very hard to track mouse families. They're not very good with paperwork.
Well, maybe this world's not made for them, ma'am. You try writing on a piece of paper 50 times your size with a pencil taller than my dick. On their way home, the Stouts struggle to get a cab to stop for them, which you might think is a funny joke, but then a cab actually stops. The fact that the cab is even looking for clients at mice height is another clue about how accepted mice actually are as part of this world, and about how backwards that orphanage lady's worldview is. The question the Stouts raise, though, is, can every mouse speak? They're only pretending to be Stuart's parents, so it's not a hereditary thing from them. Either all mice can speak, or the cats found 2 other super intelligent mice out of the millions who can't speak. The Stouts are exposed when the orphanage lady reveals the truth about Stuart's real parents.
Apparently, they were grocery shopping, canned food aisle. There was an unsteady pyramid of cans, and it collapsed. Took 3 bag boys to dig them out. They had to identify them by their dental records.
So these fucking mice have teeth on file? Mice have 12 molars and 4 incisors. 12 molars? Well, it makes sense they go to the dentist all the goddamn time. They gotta get their molars taken out fucking 8 times a week. So many of them. As the cats drop the facade and just try to kill Stuart before he can get back to the little house, he's still somehow oblivious to cats wanting to eat him, even though Snowbell ate him when he first got home. So what does it mean that he doesn't know cats eat mice? He's clearly a reader and he talks about his favorite movies. He knows stuff about the world. The most likely explanation here is that he really sees himself as a person. A short little person. It makes sense because nothing is closed off to him. He gets the complete experience of a human child, but with being able to do extra stuff that only 2-inch tall people get to do, like drive his tiny car, swim in the toilet, live in a Lego house, eat a grain of rice like a beef jerky. Then Snowbell gets his hero turn, breaking a branch to send the other cats falling into the water very 1999-edly, meaning the filmmakers just threw cats in the river and went, the Humane Society said it was chill. Mice are mostly established in this world by the end of this film. Talking mice are treated as regular members of civilization. They go to the dentist, take cabs around the city, and get prejudiced against. They're fleetingly rare though. Either most of the 2 million mice in New York City can't speak, or they keep to an underground society hidden from human eyes. Cats, on the other hand, are still a mystery. Does anyone realize what these guys are getting up to? That they have gangs that abuse drugs and arrange murders?
It's settled. Stuart Little gets scratched tonight.
In 2002, Stuart Little 2 was released and was more critically well received, but it has fewer notable interactions between Stuart and the world, now that the movie's world has fully accepted and made room for the presence of this mouse. For example, Stuart is allowed to be on the soccer team despite his mom's very rational fear of him getting crushed to death by a cleat. And when Stuart flies over a group of nuns in his new plane, let's pay close attention to this nun's reaction. Is this changing her understanding of the world and of God's plan? It's debatable, but it looks more like she understands a little mouse has lost control of a plane and is worried for its life. Stuart is even allowed to have a pensive drive through school and down the sidewalk without getting absolutely smushed, whether by accident or someone being afraid of a mouse driving a car. What SL2 does enlighten us about is the world of birds. During Stuart's reflective drive, an injured bird named Margalo lands in his car and they immediately drive through some real-life birds who just make bird noises. Now the layman may think this is a great clue. Hey look, it's normal acting animals that don't speak. That's immediately undone with the villain's introduction. The villain of this movie is a falcon who is introduced with a mighty falcon caw and then speaks normally for the rest of the movie. So animals can make animal noises if they want to, but can still choose to speak humanly also. Falcon, by the way, is just named Falcon, so I guess there's only one of those. It's a possible clue in favor of not every member of a species being able to talk. Margalo turns out to be working for Falcon, getting wrapped up with the Little family to case their house to rob it. But she's so enamored with Stuart that she doesn't want to go through with it, until Falcon threatens Stuart's life, forcing her to steal a nice ring and leave the house behind. With Margalo nowhere to be found, Snowbell urges Stuart to give up looking for her and gives us a major clue to the universe.
Do yourself a favor. Buy a parakeet and forget her.
We never see a pet store in the franchise, but this is the confirmation we get that they exist. Snowbell also makes a compelling argument for giving up in general.
If more people gave up, there'd be fewer wars.
I ask you Snowbell haters, where's the lie? They end up finding Falcon, but it goes south and he drops Stuart off the top of his building lair. It's the dark second act of Stuart's story after all, as hinted by the melodramatic skateboarding montage that is just so much like that one in The Amazing Spider-Man.
Hoping to find a way.
I don't know which way I'm going.
Stranded on a garbage barge, Stuart questions whether he even deserves to be a little.
Maybe I'm just Stuart Nobody. Stuart Nothing.
But then in the next movie, we find out his name is Stuart Skywalker. When the family is out searching for Stuart, they discover his tiny car, covered in tiny graffiti, and curse the tiny vandals that did it. Interesting implications here for mouse culture and the culture at large. The idea of little crime, little drug dealers. Oh, little embezzlers. Oh, so cute. Stuart flies back into town on his plane, and from their cab, the Littles tell the driver to follow that mouse, prompting him to do a bitching J-turn in pursuit. Cab drivers really love mice in this town. Maybe they tip really well, or they're just very cute. Or when they puke in the back seat, it's really easy to clean it up. Stuart outsmarts Falcon, and it's implied Monty is going to eat him, though we find out in the animated series that he didn't. Snowbell curses out the Littles for not appreciating him enough, but Mom brushes past it and addresses him with,
Snow, want some tuna when we get home?
and that makes him join them right away. Any cat owner would tell you that their cat is sentient if they did that. That is the dream for my cats to understand one word I say. Hey buddy, there's a big tuna sandwich around. Do you want it? Stop it. At the very end, Snowbell actually talks pretty loud with the family right there and nobody addresses him. I wish I could take that as a clue, but ignoring an annoying family member is something that just about every family does. So did we learn much about cats here? I think it's pushed us somewhat in the direction of cats have their own language that other animals understand, but humans don't. And that's all well and good if mice are the one species that can learn English, but now we have birds that talk to humans also. So why would cats not be able to? And why would humans never notice how smart they are? Why wouldn't the Littles try and have a conversation with Snowbell with Stuart translating? It just doesn't feel like a final answer to me. Stuart Little 3, Call of the Wild, went straight to DVD in 2005, fully animated with the worst aesthetic of all time. It has a big cast of new forest animals with new clues to get into, while Stuart's treatment is pretty consistent in the franchise from here on out. Everyone understands him, and it's mildly weird that he's a mouse, but not really. In the opening of the film, we see Snowbell talking with Monty on the stoop about how him and the Littles are going camping, and the mom walks right by them, ignoring them, so no surprises there. But the fact the Littles are taking Snowbell at all says something about their understanding of his sentience. I would never take my cats camping if I had that choice to go to a place that I wanted to. Arriving in the woods, we now meet a skunk with fucking hair. The skunk's name is Rico, as in that reeks. Rico, pretty funny. I would have gone with Smell Cool J. Or Dame Judy Stench. Rico is the skunk with the funk. He gives us such classic lines as slap my tail and call me stinky. There's also a scene where Rico makes martial arts noises while farting, which is just aggressively 2005. Rico befriends Stuart and comes to dinner with the Littles, but he's self-conscious that Stuart's embarrassed to be seen with the skunk, another glimpse at some animal class issues. So now the Littles meet yet another animal that they understand perfectly. And I'm supposed to believe that cats are still the only animals they can't understand. It's bullshit! We also meet the group of talking forest animals that Rico is outcast from, and another group of birds that make bird noises, which again is either because they can't speak or just because they want to make those noises at that moment. And at the mention of Bigfoot, a child says,
He likes to be called Sasquatch. Whatever.
So maybe that guy's real too. I don't give a shit. Anyway, at some point the plot of the movie happens, and it's that Rico tricks Snowbell into coming into the forest so the beast can capture him and use his soft fur for a rug. It's the third movie in a row that Stuart is betrayed by a new animal companion. First with his fake parents and the cats, then Margalo, and now the funny skunk who makes martial arts noises while farting? Is there anyone he can trust? The beast keeps Snowbell alive in her cave, feeding him bugs and dirt to fatten him up to make a bigger rug. It's like Silence of the Lambs, except goodbye horses is probably something this talking animal motherfucker actually says when he's leaving somewhere that horses are. Right? This gives Stuart plenty of time to sneak in, hoist Snowbell out of the hole, and have a just screaming conversation with him that the beast doesn't hear from 10 feet away, even though earlier she heard a twig break from across the entire forest. But I'm confident that there's a really good explanation for that, like there is for all of this. They end up capturing the beast by building a type of trap pit inspired by the guerrilla fighters of Vietnam. This movie only left me more confused about the rules and made the TV show seem like a fountain of information by comparison. Stuart Little, the animated series, aired for one season on HBO Family in 2003 between the second and third films. It's safe to say the show is canon, produced same as the films by Sony and featuring an appearance from Falcon recapping what happened to him in SL2. Stuart, again, may as well not be a mouse for everything he's able to do in the series. The only person in the entire series who dares question Stuart's role in this world is George's friend Will in episode 4, He Said, He Said. Leading up to the big remote control truck race, Will calls out George for using Stuart as a driver in an otherwise driverless race, a completely fair thing to question. George mounts the Air Bud defense.
There's nothing in the rules against it.
Okay, George, I'm just gonna shoot your truck with a gun then, if the ref doesn't say no guns at the start. And same goes for you, Air Bud. But while Stuart's role is well established, the animated series manages to answer a few questions about other animals in the Littleverse. Let's start with dogs. In the very first minute of episode 1, The Meatloaf Bandit, Stuart says hi to a dog who only barks back. They later borrow that same dog to help catch the Meatloaf Bandit, who's been stealing meat. I don't know if you care about me recapping the plot of the episodes. There's a guy who's stealing meatloaf. Does that help? And Snowbell reveals his anti-dog bias.
You all smell funny and you drool on your friends.
Now, it seems unfair to generalize in a world where so many animals have feelings that you can hurt, but the Littles can't even train this one to sit. We've gotten glimpses of potentially non-talking animals before, but this is the first time we've been able to sit with one and confirm it has no potential for greater intelligence. But then in episode 10, A Little Too Fast, when Snowbell falls in love with a hot girl cat, he approaches what he thinks is her and asks what her name is. To his great surprise, a dog turns around and says one universe-unraveling word.
Bruce.
So some dogs can talk and some dogs can't. This contrast in dog intelligence actually has big implications. It's safe to assume other animals in the universe are the same way. So those groups of birds can pretty much be assumed non-verbal if we don't see otherwise. And this extends to the nature of mice in the universe. Probably most of them can't speak and just run around doing mice things. And those things just aren't notable enough to ever be worth showing on screen. Episode 5, The Great Outdoors, introduces us to the first raccoons of the franchise. They're mean, they love eating trash, and they have enough manual dexterity to pick the lock on an RV. The raccoons promise to kick Snowbell's ass if he doesn't do what they say, and when they're about to follow through with it, Snowbell pleads,
Nobody expects wildlife to keep a promise.
I expected this from the orphanage lady, but not you, Snowbell. When the raccoons are taken into custody at the end of the episode, George asks if they'll be put in raccoon jail, and the park ranger just laughs in his face like that's such a fucking ridiculous idea. The mice have dental records, dude. We learn about bugs in episode 7, A Little Big Record, when Stuart sees a world record for largest stack of bugs and says,
How'd they get him to stand still for the picture? Oh, they're dead bugs.
So bugs are all but confirmed not sentient. But then in episode 11, No Job is Too Little, this bug farts just like a human. So there's much still to think about. In episode 12, A Little Bit Country, ravens, chickens, and cows all get added to the roster of animals we've seen speak. And that's all the boring animals. Let's get to the cat material. In episode 1, Monty yells like a dude while we're watching him, but makes a stock cat sound effect as soon as we switch to George and Stuart's perspective. So is that supposed to be what George hears? We know Monty could just be slipping in a cat sound despite being able to talk, like Falcon did in SL2, so we can't be sure about this, but it's a compelling clue. I watched Snowbell very carefully throughout this show, desperately looking for proof that they can hear him or they can't, and I truly do not care which at this point. I just want this madness to be resolved. The Little family clearly has respect for Snowbell's intelligence. Like in episode 9, Adventures in Housekeeping, when they try to catch and wash Snowbell, they spell out bath, B-A-T-H, so they don't alarm him. Putting aside that cats bathe themselves all day every day, regular cats don't react to words, so they know Snowbell understands them at least a little bit. Or else the writers just got cats and dogs mixed up like they did with the bath thing. But regardless of how they understand Snowbell to think, they don't try to negotiate with him here. He's more an animal than a family member. Although, he does sneak his way into nearly all of the family's adventures, because the writers needed to get Snowbell to where the plot is happening, but they were afraid to just commit and make the family devoted cat people who bring their little angel everywhere. It's gotta be Snowbell being mischievous. A normal family wouldn't just bring their cat to the fair, I guess. I have to admit, Throughout the series, the family pretty much treats Snowbell like a pet. In episode 12, Stuart asks to stay back at the farm to watch the cats, and George asks to stay back to watch Stuart. So that kind of spells out the chain of command. And in episode 2, the baby covers Snowbell in slobbery kisses, something that's normally not acceptable to do to a family member. The wrench in the works here, though, is that Snowbell is a major piece of shit, and that may inform how the Littles are treating him. In episode 7, Monty teaches Snowbell how to fake being sick, which Snowbell then does for multiple days to get extra tuna and pity treats. In episode 1, he tries to eat the meatloaves Mom is cooking for the neighborhood. She catches him and tosses him out, saying he should know better. And later, Snowbell very problematically calls the little baby midget. But it was 2005, so it's hard to say if the family would have been aware of issues with that. This isn't even to mention that most everything he says in a group setting is just whining about the situation, or that the Littles may be irritated by his continuous hatred of Stuart. So it's interesting watching the family continuously ignore him with his bad behavior in mind. In episode 7, when Snowbell is faking sick, the family calls in the first veterinarian in the franchise so far. As soon as he arrives at the door, Snowbell insists he's all better, but the family ignores him, which could be out of concern or to teach him a lesson. So while calling a vet for Snowbell versus a regular doctor for Stuart is a good clue into how he's perceived, I think a pattern of torture also makes sense as an explanation. Like in episode 2, this interaction could go either way.
Snowbell, what are you doing here?
Trying not to lose my kibble.
Fun, huh, Snowbell?
That's why it's so hard for me to give up on them being able to understand Snowbell. I think the more I learn about the world, the less it makes sense that cats are the only animals that humans can't understand. And the more I learn about Snowbell, the more it makes sense that they just don't respect him enough to communicate with him. But that's all the info we've got. Like, say, Twin Peaks, the creators leave us with enough wiggle room to theorize and devise our own answers to these questions. Until, of course, we dive into the source material. Stuart Little by E.B. White was first published in 1945. I couldn't find the specific date, so let's just say the day Hitler killed himself. Going into the text for answers, we have to first ask, is this for sure the same universe? The book sure handles some concepts very differently. For instance, Stuart was born into the family instead of adopted, which is frankly disgusting. And on the first page, they describe Stuart thus. Before he was many days old, he was not only looking like a mouse, but acting like one too, wearing a gray hat and carrying a small cane. Thanks, that's great context, thank you. In chapter 11, The Automobile, Stuart is gifted his iconic little car, except here it's yellow and it has a real gasoline motor and can turn invisible, and he gets it as a gift from his dentist. The mention of the dentist is interesting actually. I'm gonna take that as a clue towards this being canon. In chapter 13, Ames Crossing, we meet Harriet Ames, a human girl even shorter than Stuart. So there are some big differences between the world of the book and the movies. Like the Snowbell of this book is straightforwardly malicious, plotting to murder Stuart himself. But then in chapter 11, everything changes. Everybody questions Snowbell closely, but the cat insisted he knew nothing about Margalo's disappearance. Everything I've been looking for, buried hours and hours deep into Stuart Little lore. Snowbell and the family just having a conversation. This was a massive relief at first, but can it be admitted as evidence? The book differs from the rest of the franchise in so many ways, and it came out so long ago. In fact, it's going on 80 years. Doesn't that mean it's public domain by now? So I can make an entry into the lore myself. I can finally answer all these questions like the franchise refused to. Don't tell me if it's not how it works, I'm doing it. Little high, little low. It's so stupid you guys greet everyone like that. If I made a video about you, I would not even mention it. Hey, what's going on here? Hey, Snowbell.
Little hey, little
Man, this English-speaking cat of yours is so annoying. I'd love to mistreat him with you. Yeah, I'm in college right now. We're learning about how the whole talking animal thing is because of a super virus that the government created to fight the Nazis in World War II, and it went airborne. Did you guys hear about the bug that farts like a human? Only one in the world, apparently. Yeah. All the other bugs fart normal. I think it's so interesting you named your mouse after that fiction book, Stuart Little. That's really interesting. Or no, his name was Stuart. And your last name was Little. Never mind. We'd strike that one. Anyone read that research paper about the beast that Stuart captured in the forest? Yeah, he had super hearing, turns out, but only for twigs. Isn't that weird? It's another government super virus, World War II, airborne, etc. Did you guys know there's hours of exclusive edited content on Leo Vader's Patreon? Yeah, so like if you watched all his videos, you can go to patreon.com/LeoVader and get more content. It's like, the tier pricing is super fair, too. I think I'm gonna watch one right now.
Get it, you made it. This is where the
Yes! Yeah! Cool! Yay! I'm loving it!